Well, I just got a reminder that I posted 5 years ago, and it's this quote, and I'm going to read this to you because I think it's very pertinent to this particular episode. It was from Headspace. It says, we can't control everything that happens to us in life, but we can fundamentally transform our experience of those things.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Lifeonaires Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Lifeonaires Show, we help people make more, work less, and create awesome, amazing, abundant, incredible, prosperous lives. I was running out of adjectives.
Starting to get a little rhythm in there, man.
I know.
Are you going to start rapping?
I was running out of adjectives, and I stopped there. I am joined by my co-host, the guy who just spoke up and introduced my intro. Sorry, interrupted my intro, Polish Peter. What's up, dude?
Man, I don't know if you would be a good rapper because you're like...
No.
Go on there and introduce my intro, interrupted my intro. Boom, boom, boom. Hello, how you doing? Where we go?
Dude, I could totally rap. I'm sure I could.
Let's try it. Okay, for the audience here.
Okay,
well, you know
first.
What? Never mind. Hold on. Stop, because we're going to lose 90% of our audience if you do that. So let's not do that.
Yeah, we'll do it at the end when we're trying to get them off the end of the show.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Well, dude, all right. So listen, we got an awesome topic today, and this is something I think is so relevant for today's culture and the climate we're in economically, the status of what's going on in the world, the way people are looking at their businesses. And we're going to talk about how to be successful in business from a couple different angles. And, you know, Peter, this is spawned by a conversation you and I had just the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided, you know, we have to share this because it's so valuable, I think, and pertinent, right? Like, because people are struggling right now, and particularly, like, let's talk about a little bit about, you know, people. And let me just back up. Everybody's perception is different, man. I think, like, where, you know, and what we're referring to is, you know, everything that's going on and particularly in our world and in the government and in business and in the economics right now. Like, so for instance, like, dude, inflation is is high right now. Right. And so, you know, we're seeing these memes on Facebook who, you know, willing to trade 24 eggs for a new Lexus. Like, I don't try and lowball me. I know what I got. Right. Like,
right.
You know,
exactly.
Stuff
right.
like that. Like, and so, like, but this affects people mentally, or it can affect people mentally. But then on the other hand, like, some people do better than ever when this kind of stuff happens, you know, man, I can't help but think, like, so I started investing right around when everything started going south, 2008, 2009, through the crash. And, you know, there were people who lost, you know, a lot. And then there were people who did really well. You know, so I think it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. Is that also the time we lost your hair? 2007, 2008?
No, that was when I got married.
Not to Helena. Okay, let's clarify that.
Just kidding. Dude, I have my hair. You know that. It's just I keep it trimmed and stylish. Hey, speaking of which, this is hilarious. Dude, this week I was going to my the UPS store. That's where I get my mail delivered. Mm-hmm. And the girl looks up at me, and she's, I don't know, maybe in her 20s. She looks up at me, looks down, looks up, looks down. She's like, it just hit me. I'm like, what? She's like, you are a combination of Vin Diesel and Josh Groban. I'm like, what?
Oh my
I've
God.
never heard that before, but I'm like, but I'm going to tell my wife that. So,
well, obviously she is living in a whole completely different world because none of this made sense to me.
Yeah, my
all.
wife said it's probably because I have tiny eyes, and so she's like, yeah, it's probably because you have small eyes. And I'm like, okay, well, how about, like,
tiny eyes or beady eyes? I think I'm going to go with beady eyes. All right, so listen, we completely went off squirrel world in this particular podcast. Let's get back into it.
Let's come on.
So listen,
stop distracting me. Let's go.
It's interesting that we bring this up on this conversation, this particular podcast, because I had, you know how we post something on Facebook and then a year later, 2 years later, whatever, the reminder pops out that you posted this. Yeah. Well, I just got a reminder posted that I posted 5 years ago on there. And it's this quote. And I'm going to read this to you because I think it's very pertinent to this particular episode. And it says, it was from Headspace. It says, we can't control everything that happens to us in life, but we can fundamentally transform our experience of those things. So I'm going to read it again. We can't control everything that happens to us in life, but we can fundamentally transform our experience of those things. So how is this relate to what we're talking about here. Because as you talked about eggs and inflation and possibly, some people are even talking about hyperinflation, whatever it might be, right? But there is sometimes outside things that are happening. And that quote first thing says, we can't control that. And whatever happens to outside of those circumstances, I think what gets people upset or, frozen or in fear mode or in doubt mode, in a space in their head when they get, kind of confused or they freeze or they don't know what to do or how to take action and those kinds of things, because those external circumstances, external things that are happening, they're changing, and now they don't know how to respond. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. I think the certainty has to come from you. It cannot come from the outside, because like you said, like as soon as your certainty in life and your security, your stability comes from your external circumstances, you're screwed, because those things are not consistent. The person who thinks they have a steady, a paycheck is safer than a business. Well, I'm not sure about that. Look, speaking of stats right now, like, I saw that, Salesforce has laid people off. I just saw something with Spotify laid off 6% of its staff just the other day.
Google laid off.
Yeah. It's happening everywhere. So like you have to derive that stability from yourself. So how does somebody do that, man? Like, what are some of the ways that like people can like learn to be kind of weather that storm and be stable regardless of those crazy, turbulent seas?
Well, one other thing that I want to bring up before we go into this particular subject is when you talked about certainty, right? Is there is this fear that we all kind of have underneath it all that says, I'm not enough, or I don't have enough. There is this not enough kind of a conversation that's in the back of our heads, if that makes any sense. So when it comes to certainty, can you ever have enough certainty? No. You can never have enough certainty, because just the mere effect of looking for certainty gives you uncertainty, which you want more certainty, and gives you more uncertainty, and you keep going back and forth. It's never, ever, 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 ever enough.
Well, I think let me interrupt you right there, man. It's you also, someone listening might right now think like, well, I feel certain right now, but I'm not certain it's going to stay certain. So maybe you have certainty, but you're afraid it's not going to last. Like this is right. Like the person who has that like small fleeting moment of success, and they're like waiting for the other foot to drop, right? You ever hear that phrase? And or the other shoe to drop, sorry. And so that, you're right. It's an endless cycle of uncertainty, in fact.
Right. And it keeps going back and forth over and over and over again. So first thing, you need to get that, be aware of that's what happens. So now how do we do that? Well, I think one of the things that needs to happen for people is think about it this way. What gets you control by certainty? What's that control that keeps you going to the certainty? Well, I think it's this idea of I need this, or I need, think about it this way. If you need air, right? You need air. And now all of a sudden you dive into a pool and you stay there for extended period of time. All of a sudden the air becomes really, really important, doesn't it? Right? And it gives you uncertainty. I'm not going to survive. And then you start, gasping for air. You want to get back up over the water, right? But if you're just walking around, you don't even look at like whether I need a breath or not. It just happens, right? So knowing that, if you start thinking, I need more money, or I need more something, I need more love, or whatever, in somebody from something outside of you, it creates that lack of control and creates that uncertainty. So the point I'm making is this: when you start getting back into you and get clear and get at peace, I say, about the money or about the relationships, and whereas it comes to a point where I don't need it in your head, if you get to the point where like, well, I don't really need more money, that gives you the space in your head to be able to actually go and take action, so you don't get frozen, you don't get like riled up to a point where you don't take any action. Does that make sense, Wojo?
Yeah, man. I think, yeah. So I think you said something there, man. It's like getting back to you. And I think depending on where your frame of reference is, that's what's going to produce the anxiety. Like, and I believe anxiety for the most part is a symptom of looking outside of yourself and looking at external things and worrying about like, what's going to happen. Well, and that's a very disempowering state. versus looking internally and saying, hey, no matter what happens, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna figure out a path through this. I'm gonna figure out how to be resourceful and make this a reality for me.
Right. So think about it this way. If you got that so far, what we just talked about, where I don't need this or I don't need that, and you something within you start looking from that perspective. Now you have a little bit more peace about where you're at and whatever is going on out there. Because something's always going to be happening out there, right? Something always is happening out there. So now that you've got that, you have two choices on how to move forward. One, you can play on the defense, or you can play on the offense, right? So what are some examples of a defense?
Let's talk about that, man. So I love this analogy of and let's talk about just like offense and defense it's a metaphor, and let's use a metaphor in business right now, but this applies to every part of your life, really. Like for instance, this applies to your health, it applies to your relationships, it applies to everything. But like, let's talk about business in particular, because we're talking about economic circumstances and whatnot. And so let's keep it relevant. I think of offense as your ability to make money and generate an income and profits. And then defense is your ability to manage, cost of goods, expenses, where money's going out. It's kind of like, I think of it this way. Another way to look at it is like, okay, you got a bucket, and if you have holes in your bucket, you're losing. That's your defense, but your offense is pouring, you're pouring that water into the bucket. And I think you got to work on your defense first, right? Because you got to plug the holes. And if we're talking about a football team, right, and you're playing offense and defense, let's talk about this is why, Peter, we teach this at the Get a Life Getaway, and we mention it at the Business Builder Workshop as well. Like, if you start making more money, most people just spend more money. And the reason is because they haven't managed and they haven't mastered their defense yet. And so just like those holes in the bucket, that those finances just flow right through. Like, because you're always, you're used to being broke, you're used to spending what you have. And so you're not able to really get ahead, and you're treading water. And so you got to work on defense first, man. And so, like, for instance, in real life, what this looks like, I think is stewarding. Like, let's say, right, all right, gas. Well, gas isn't too bad right now. Like, it's okay, but food is expensive, man. Like, we're spending a lot of money on food.
Well, I mean, look at you. I mean, you probably take.
It's not even me, man.
The food intake in that household.
My girls are animals, man. There we
go. Blame it on your girls.
Dude, steak, dude. They eat as much steak as I do, and I'm like, what in the world? Like, what kind of like crazy like alien kids do I have? They're just gonna be like,
you're gonna have to resort to roadkill pretty soon.
Oh, that's right. I'm gonna stop and start picking up squirrels. But like, so you got to manage your defense first, and like get a hold on things, but I think at some point you got to work on the offense too, man, because like, we've talked this before, like, let's say businesses start to feel a pinch. What's one of the first things they cut, man?
Defense.
Marketing.
Yep. And marketing. Yep.
Marketing.
And that's the worst thing that you can do. By the way, in the business, it is one of the worst things that you can do. And that applies to a personal life as well, because think about it. What is your version of marketing? Right? Yeah. Look at for your own personal life. What is your version of marketing? Like in business, you go market your product or your services, right? To get more clients, that kind of stuff. What is it that you do personally in life that's a version of marketing? Whatever it is, what ends up happening during these periods, that's what people typically start doing. They start cutting off that version of marketing in their life. And they work on defense. And guess what? They stop there. Think about it.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, man. So like, I think, you got to work on your defense. Absolutely. And you got to be smart with the defense. So that maybe for you, this is your family budget, which by the way, I hate the word budget. We use the word freedom plan. But you got to make more money too. One mistake, the one mistake I think people make, like, so for instance, like, let's talk about like people that are involved in like coaching or masterminding, right? Like a lot of times people will feel a pinch in their budget and they're like, hey, well, I'm going to let go of the coaching. Dude, I feel like that's a huge mistake, because that is actually part of your offense, not just your defense, because it's an investment. And I'll tell you, man, like, so I don't know if
I think that's the version of the marketing we just talked about.
It is, but it's even more important, I believe. But like, so I don't know if a lot of our podcast listeners know my story, but there was a point in my life where I was living on an air mattress in one of my rehabs, one of my flips, on a concrete floor. And I was still paying for coaching, even though like I knew, like I didn't have the money. Well, I guess I could have used my coaching money to find somewhere to live and pay for an apartment, but I'm like, no, this is going to be the last thing I let go of. Like I will stop eating before I let go of my coaching, because like I knew that was my ticket out of it. And so I think you got to discern very carefully the investments you make and what you're doing with. So here's another thing, in defense, Peter and I know we disagree a little bit on this. And I think the phrase is a little bit, I think it's a little bit too general, but like, for instance, I don't think you can just win on defense, contrary to like the phrase that football people say, like, oh, you win with defense. Here's why. Let's say your defense is, let's say, let's use a football analogy. Your defense is perfect. Okay. The other team, and of course the other team is the analogy for life here. Right. But, the other team doesn't score on you. So they have 0 points on you, but guess what? If you don't have an offense, you don't have any points either. And so it's 0-0. So nobody wins. So you can't just win by defense alone. And this is where, for instance, I think you got to be smart in how you cut expenses in overhead, because at some point you're cannibalizing your offense rather than like really being smart with your defense. And, this is where there's also a law of diminishing returns, I think, too. Like, yeah, you can cut some things, but some things are going to cost you more than what you're saving by cutting it. So I think you got to be careful how you look at that.
So I'm not sure why you said that we disagree, because
you're like,
what you just said.
Because you brought up the phrase like, oh, you win on defense, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the general phrase, right? Because think about it this way. If your defense doesn't work, that you can be working on offense, but if your defense doesn't work, you keep bleeding the whole time, right?
Right.
That's the idea behind it.
Hey, we'll get right back to our interview, but I want to tell you about something really quickly here in a moment, and that is our Get a Life Getaway event. This is an event we've been doing going on 15 years now. We've had almost 10,000 people go through it, and it's an incredible event. If you want to transform your life, if you don't have the life you dream about, the one that you know you deserve and the one you worked hard for, and you are sick of kind of being sick and tired and not having all the things and experiences in your life that are waiting for you, then you need to get to this event. I'll just tell you right now, this event will transform absolutely everything in your life. We will take you hand in hand and walk you through step by step the process to create your ideal life in every single area, because they all fit together. This is a proven formula. We've been doing this so long now. We've tweaked it, we've refined it, we've perfected it, and we would love for you to be there. Peter and I teach these personally. We do not delegate these to anybody else. This is part of our vision. We love pouring into people, and we'd love to see you at an event. Now, to make it even more enticing for you, that even in of itself, it's awesome, is we're going to give you, because you're a loyal podcast listener, a 50% off ticket price. So when you go to lifeonair.com, that's lifeonair.com, you'll go to the events page, you'll see the Get a Life Getaway. When you check out, after you choose the specific event you want to do, and by the way, we do about a half dozen of these events per year, 3 of the Get a Life Getaway and 3 of the Business Builder Workshop. You simply go to that checkout page, and when you're ready to check out, there's a promo code you will enter. It's called podcast. Use the promo code podcast for 50% off the Get a Life Getaway, and we will see you there.
But here's the thing. One thing that I want you to listen or consider is this. When you're working on the defense, and we're going to talk about the offense in a little bit here, but you have to be strategic about how you work the defense. Because what ends up happening, most people just go across the border and then just work the defense across the border. And when I say strategic, is things like, for instance, like you just said, coaching. And I totally 100% agree with Wojo about that is not one of those things that you should probably be cutting out on your defense during this particular time, because when you go and grow, and you work on yourself, and maybe the mastermind gives you some idea, or the coaching to help you working on the offense will help you grow that gap for yourself in order to thrive, not just survive in this market economy, but actually thrive in this market. So you got to be strategic and what you cut. So that's the defense part. Now, what ends up happening, like I said earlier, a lot of people, they work on the defense and they stop. Because when we go back to that certainty thing, that's what gets them stuck, and they stop working in their life. And they literally just, I cut this. I'm good. I'm going to survive this time. And their idea, their thinking behind is I'm going to survive. It's a survival mode mechanism that kicks in, right?
Yeah.
What I would encourage you is once you got that, now you start working on the offense. And I think that is super duper important in this particular type of an economy to work on the offense, because that's what's going to get you. Are you ready for this, Wojo? From here to there.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So what's your thoughts about this?
Dude, I totally agree. Like because defense puts you on your heels. And I think that, yeah, you gotta defend, but you have to go on the offense as well. And I think the natural, for a lot of people, the natural thing to do when you're scared or feeling uncertain is to, like, you clam up, you cuddle, you get in the fetal position and you just work on defense and minimizing losses. And that's not gonna be what gets you ahead. It kind of reminds me of, like, man, I was watching World War Z recently with Brad Pitt again. And there's one scene that just I'll never forget. Like, so they're getting chased by the zombies, right? Mm-hmm. And they go into this apartment complex and they find a family in there, and they're in their apartment, and they're like, we got to go. We have to go. Leave the certainty of your apartment, which they thought was safe, right? Mm-hmm. Because they thought they'd be safe there because they're familiar with it. And meanwhile, the zombies, they're like, we got to go. And they said no. And, like, they go running down the hallway. The family stays there. Then you kind of hear, like, yelling and screaming, and, like, it's obvious what happens now. And so one of, like, a little girl from the family, like, ends up making it, but, like, she ran and she took off, but, like, the rest of the family stayed there. And I think that's kind of like being on defense all the time. You're just trying to weather the storm, but, like, you're not getting ahead. And it's likely that you're going to have more problems because you can't live on nothing, and you can't just live in fear. You have to take that step forward into the offense. And by the way, again, offense here, we're talking about making money, doing things to generate revenue, and being even more aggressive perhaps than you were prior. Well,
but again, you got to be strategic about it, I think. That's a very important word in this, because what ends up happening is, and I think maybe they're going to call me after this, podcast if they're listening, Detroit Lions, in most of their career job that I've seen in, when they're playing offense, they just look to pick some kind of a play out of the hat, and they see if this works, see if this works, right? And they're just all over the place. They're like the squirrel mode that, this year they've been pretty good, but overall, in the past years, I think that's how at least it seemed like it, that's how they operated. And I think what ends up happening a lot of times when there is this time of uncertainty, when people they get out of the defense mode, and then they go, okay, I need to play offense. What ends up happening is they start playing offense in a very kind of a squirrel mode, like, what I'm talking about, like squirrel there, squirrel, and they're all over the place. So they're not strategic in how to play that offense. So how do you actually go about doing it? What I would encourage you is to look at, number one, I think for you, anybody listening to this call, number one thing to the offense in this time is to work on you. Work on your own personal development, work on your own, mind, work on your...
Did you just give yourself your own thumbs up?
Well, Zoom just recognized I'm trying to, like, give
myself
not doing
it for me, up. Man.
By the way, here, I'm going to do a hand too and watch what happens. But anyway, so here is the thing. I just gave myself a high five. Look at that, right? But here's the thing. When you work on the offense, when you're looking to be strategic working on the offense, you have to you say, okay, what's stuff that I'm really good at? What is some of the things that I can provide a solution to someone else that someone else in this particular time period was really looking for? Because think about it, there's a lot of people out there who, let's say they're kind of frozen. They don't know what to do, right? Or they're just playing on the defense. And now they're stuck in that area, right? Maybe there's something that you are able to do that your company does, or that you have some kind of product or service that you are capable of doing, that now you can take it and raise the bar on how you market yourself in that particular area to go and help more people. Does that make sense? I
man,
can give you some examples.
Well, I think, yeah, a couple things come to mind with this. First is you need a vision. You need a vision to make sure you're not going to get off track, right? And don't let the the ups and downs of life and the market, whatever, like deviate that in any substantial way, deviate you from that. And the other thing is, like, I think look at what you've already been doing and kind of really double down on the things that are working, and or strategically add in things, sequentially, meaning like not all at once. You do, try one thing at a time or a couple things at a time, and really pour yourself into it to see, and measure. Like, this is another huge part too, is like, this is, don't even get me started on this, man. So many business owners have no clue, like, really what's producing their revenue and what their real numbers look like and whatnot. And so, like, but I think, just being kind of proactive. And, the other part of this that we haven't even mentioned, man, is like, and I know there's different opinions and schools of thought on this, but I would be cautious about spending too much time, like, even looking at this stuff or reviewing it. I'm not telling you to be ignorant or bury your head in the sand of what's going on, like in the world and in your economy and things like that. But at some point, like, I think you just got to be careful. Like, is it serving me, or is this like making me worried? Because, like, listen, if you're worried and you're stressed out, you're probably not going to be thinking as clearly and creatively as you could if you had peace of mind and were focused. And so you got to know you. Like, is this going to throw you off for the day? Like, if you learn something, like, and you're worried about the price of eggs, is this going to throw you off for the day, or is it kind of like, okay, like, about it, and all right, I'll take note of that, and then I'm just gonna do my thing. Like, you got to know yourself.
Right. And that's why I said, you look at personal development on your side, right? Because of the fact that goes back to the quote that I read at the beginning of the podcast, right? We can't control everything that happens to us in life, but we can fundamentally transform our experience of those things. So how you respond is what matters. Yeah. So looking at the eggs, a price raising in the eggs, and you start responding from the perspective, okay, oh, this is not good, and I'm freezing, and I'm kind of fearful. That's not a good response, because it doesn't allow you to give ability to take action, right? But if you look at, okay, eggs, right? So what do I need to do? How do I need to take advantage of this? What's the opportunity that I need to look in my own life based on my vision? Because here's what I want you to consider. If you have a written vision, and you've put something on that vision that you were looking to do in your life, this may be the opportunity for you to actually start working on that particular part in your vision, because the door possibly is going to open. Now, I can't see your vision, whoever is listening on here, so take it with a grain of salt what I'm saying, but it has to be the item that Wojo said, doubling down, has to be something that solves the problem that people are currently dealing with. Because if you're looking at the perspective of doubling down of, let's say, I don't know, herding cats, right? Stupid example, but let's say herding cats. Nobody's looking to help you help them herding cats, right? But if you look from the opportunity of, okay, real estate investors, right? Houses. So is there going to be opportunity coming? I believe there is. And is there opportunities coming, right? So now you got to start working on marketing yourself to help people solve that problem. And I will take it one step further and say, what has worked for you, let's say as a real estate investor, 3-4 months ago, it doesn't work as well now. So you're going to have to get very creative on how you, quote unquote, double down, how you market, so you rise above everyone else in order to stand out and be able to go and take action. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, man, and like, let's talk, like, and by the way, like, herding cats is perhaps the worst example I've ever heard, but that's okay.
Again, this is coming from me, so take it with a grain of salt. I don't know why herding cats, like, do people ever herd cats?
I don't know, man. Maybe you're.
By the way, we're probably
going to
hear from the animal control people around.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Peter's going to be calling you right now, like this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anybody just. Wojo is going to give you guys an email address. I should probably just say it right now what your email address is.
Yeah, I'm gonna send them to you for sure. I get it. You're a secret cat lover. That's cool. So listen, let's talk like one thing, and I know we're almost out of time here, but I just want to leave you with some meat as something really tangible to think about in your business. One area I think that's valuable, and I know, listen, if finances are tight, I totally get it, especially with things, the cost of things going up, and cars are expensive, and I get it. So one simple, very easy to implement thing to do is start to look at not other people in your niche specifically doing the same thing as you, but look at other businesses that are doing complementary services that might be able to help you and market for you, or you guys develop some sort of collaboration. Like I see this a lot, very, very successfully, where, for instance, let's say you're a real estate investor. Okay, well, and by the way, whatever industry you're in, I promise there are other people here, and we'll talk about a couple other examples as well. But real estate, let's say, okay, what about making contact with a couple title attorneys who, maybe a probate attorney, a divorce attorney, couples getting divorced, and the attorney can say, well, hey, listen, I have this person who's been successfully working with some of my previous clients, and they've been very happy, and I'd be happy to pass on that name. Or maybe it's even a title company, or maybe it's an inspector, or maybe it's a pest control company, or maybe it's somebody who does junk removal, right? I met a guy, I just spoke last week at a group, and this guy he's building his junk removal business. He has a few trucks now, and we had a great conversation. Like, look at all of maybe it's a roofer, maybe it's a contractor, a handyman.
Moving company.
There's so many. Just sit down in front of a piece of paper and write down everybody else who does business with your target customer, but in a different way, like a different service that they might need. For instance, and look at that. We recently had a guy come to our business builder workshop, and he had a yacht management company. And we started talking with him, like, hey, who else is doing business with these people? And okay, these people typically have, they might have a chef, they might have people that do their cleaning, their maid service. They probably have a plane. They probably they may subscribe to like the Rob Report magazine. They probably are looking at into aviation. They probably have all these other things, all these other businesses that people that do business with, that you can start to kind of just cross-pollinate and help each other. It's not a competition. Like, it's not a competition because you're helping each other. And by the way, this is one huge mistake I think people have, is like, you got to look at it this way. Like, let's say, and this is something Steve Cook told me a long time ago that I thought was brilliant. When he first started, Steve Cook is the founder of Lifeonaires, and he's coached both Peter and myself. And so Steve said, when I was a successful investor, and that was my number one thing, I made it easy for my people because I had a lender, I had a title company, I had contractors that I could give those names out. By the way, you hear what I'm saying, right? Like, he's using the exact same principle we're talking about here. And that made people want to do more business with him because they made their life easier in all these other areas too. So like, this is a simple, easy, free strategy.
Right.
And it's going to build goodwill.
Right. So start calling these people and getting a conversation, and listen, look from the perspective of what can I offer them that's going to help them, right? The other business. Because when you start looking from that perspective, maybe you barter something, or maybe you commission something, maybe you give split profits, or maybe you do something along those lines. And all of a sudden, guess what? You start doing business with those other people, similar clientele, and your business starts growing. So I think that's a great, strategic partnerships is really good.
And you can even do it like, you can even set it up that like, you give a special discount to these people's folks.
Right.
Like, so maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to knock off 10% of my services, or give some sort of other incentive to for that person, so they feel special as well.
Yeah, I have another idea. Some of the businesses who, think about it this way. Let's say there's a business that's complementary to you, and they get a big list of people. And let's say they have 1,000 subscribers on this list, and only about 20% of them are actual clients on there. Well, 80% of them are not. So what if you ask them if you could, you strategically market to their people who are not interested in their service because they might be interested in your service, and you tap into some form of, asset that they can't use, but you're tapping into it and you can use it. So it's almost like that leads, you turn them into live leads kind of a thing, right? Yeah. You can do it in so many different ways. You can send emails to each other's lists, things like that, make offers, create free training that leads people down the path of doing business with you, but goodwill, right? Create goodwill in today's market, to share people, to lead people, because that's what most of the people are going to be looking for, is someone to lead them. So
yeah, and so by the way, that's just one of dozens of ways you can do this, but it's free.
Right.
It's free, right? And you can start doing this, right? And so listen, let's just wrap this up, man. But like a couple just overview things. One, let's summarize what we talked about. Find the certainty within yourself. Don't just rely on defense. Yeah, get the defense down, but don't exclusively rely on defense. Strategically look at defense. Start doubling down on the offense that makes sense for you, that's in alignment with your vision, that's produced results. Look for free or cheap or inexpensive ways to get more sales and more marketing and more eyeballs on your brand and your business. Like, these are all awesome ways to weather any storm, regardless of what's going on in the environment around you, and whether it's local or global, and the environment, the economy, all those kinds of things.
Yep. And, look for those strategic partnerships. Even I would say, look outside of your industry to get ideas of what other industries are doing right now, that what you can apply to your own business will make a big difference for you, because of the fact that your audience may not be aware of it. Right.
Yeah, dude. So I look at I think of it this way, man. Do you remember the old Voltron robot? Do you remember this? This is before my time. They didn't have this in Poland, I guess. It's basically this robot that assembles from like 5 or 6 different robots, and all of them come together to make this giant robot. That's what we're talking about. Like, you're benefiting from and helping others benefit in their business as well, by working together as collaborators rather than competitors, and seeing the pie as plenty for being plenty for everyone. So listen, do something with this. Let us know how it works.
That everybody should become a Voltron.
Yeah, Voltron Unite, or there's some battle cry. I don't know what it was like. So do something with this. Listen, we want to help you get through any challenge you may have in your life or business. And so if you want to join us at a Get a Life Getaway, that'd be awesome. That's where we help people really figure out their vision in very concrete, tangible terms, and with an action plan to achieve it and actually make it a reality. And the Business Builder Workshop is where we kind of take your vision that you've created, now translate it to a business vision, and then we start working on how to create a business to serve that life and serve that vision, to make you the money you want and the time you want. So it's an awesome combination. It's a 1-2 punch to the life and business you love. And as always, we'd love it for you to leave us a review, a rating, give us a thumbs up, and share this with as many people as you can. All right, guys, we will see you next time. Have a great one. Take care.